Burkina Faso is on edge, and its young leader just dodged a bullet, literally. Ibrahim Traore, the country's president, survived a deadly assassination attempt that was part of a larger, high-stakes coup plot. Now, in a stunning twist, Russian special forces have landed on the ground to protect him. That's right, Russian commandos in West Africa. So what's going on here? What's Russia doing in Burkina Faso? And who are they really protecting Traore from? Let's break this down. The political situation in Burkina Faso is spiraling. Ever since Traore took power in September 2022, it's been one crisis after another. Insurgents in the north, political rivals in the capital, and shadowy figures trying to pull strings from behind the scenes. All of it came to a head in April 2025, when a coordinated coup nearly brought down his government. The plot wasn't just a handful of rogue soldiers. It was a network of former and current military officers, some backed by insurgent groups operating across the Sahel. Their goal, not just to remove Traore, but to dismantle the entire regime he's trying to build. And here's where things take an international turn. Traore's response to the coup attempt was fast and calculated. He turned to Moscow. Within days, Russian special forces arrived to bolster his security and lock down key government sites. That move shocked many and raised even more questions. Is this the beginning of a new alliance, or is Traore simply desperate, pulling in foreign muscle to keep his grip on power? Either way, one thing's clear. Burkina Faso isn't just fighting a domestic battle, it's become a front line in a much bigger geopolitical game, and the stakes are only getting higher. Nobody saw it coming. Another plot to take out President Ibrahim Traore uncovered just in time. But this wasn't the first, and if history's any clue, it won't be the last. Traore's been a target ever since he took power. Coup attempts, assassination threats, and mounting pressure from every angle. It's been a constant fight to stay in control. But this time, with the danger hitting too close to home, Traore made a bold and controversial call. He brought in Russian commandos to protect his government. That move sent shockwaves through the region. This wasn't some symbolic show of strength. These Russian special forces are the real deal. Elite, battle-tested, and trained for high-risk operations. They were brought in with a clear mission: keep Traore alive and his government standing. They're not just standing around palace gates either. They're actively securing top officials, protecting critical infrastructure, and reshaping how Burkina Faso responds to threats. From the presidential compound to military bases, the Russians are tightening the net around Traore. And anyone thinking of coming for him again will have a much harder time. But there's more to this than just security. These Russian operatives are training Burkina Faso's military from the ground up. Everything from advanced tactics to counterintelligence to surveillance. The goal: build a force that can hold its own against insurgents and traitors alike. And so far, it's working. The local forces are sharper, stronger, and better prepared for what's coming. And make no mistake, this partnership is changing the game. Traore's decision to lean on Moscow signals a major shift. For decades, Burkina Faso relied on Western powers, especially France, for military aid and diplomatic backing. Now, that chapter might be closing. By turning east, Traore is aligning with a new global player that's quickly expanding its footprint across Africa. Whether this alliance saves his presidency or drags the country deeper into international conflict remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure, the stakes have never been higher. For years, Burkina Faso was in step with France, part of a larger, Western-led effort to fight insurgents across the Sahel. French troops were stationed on the ground, running counter-terror operations and backing local forces. But that alliance, it's crumbled. The trust eroded fast. Traore's government started seeing France not as a helping hand, but as a roadblock. The frustration wasn't just local, it mirrored a broader wave of discontent with Western involvement across Africa. When France began pulling out of neighboring Mali, the writing was on the wall. Burkina Faso didn't just drift away from the West, it pivoted hard toward Russia. And Russia, they were more than ready to fill the gap. Unlike Western powers, who often tie their aid to political conditions, Russia's pitch was simple. We'll help, no strings attached. For leaders like Traore, under siege from insurgents and surrounded by political enemies, that offer was hard to refuse. But let's be clear, Russia's move isn't just about saving one African president. It's about strategy. It's about long-term influence. The Sahel is a hot zone, both militarily and geopolitically, and by planting its flag in Burkina Faso, Russia is signaling loud and clear, we're here to stay. With French troops heading out and Western interests cooling, Moscow is stepping into the vacuum. Russian special forces, weapons, military trainers, they're showing up all across the continent. And Burkina Faso, sitting right in the middle of the Sahel, is now a central piece in Russia's Africa playbook. Traore's alliance with Russia is about survival, but it's also about sovereignty. He's betting that by teaming up with Moscow, his government can finally gain the upper hand against insurgents, stabilize the country, and break free from what many African leaders see as neo-colonial control from the West. Still, it's a risky gamble. Burkina Faso is far from stable. Insurgent groups remain active. Political rivals are watching closely, and the pressure hasn't let up. Russian boots on the ground may keep Traore safe for now, but can they help fix the deeper issues tearing the country apart? That's the big question, and maybe an even bigger one. Does Russia actually care about Traore's long-term future, or is this just another chess move in their growing global game? Stick with us as we unpack that next. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content on Black history. Alliance with Russia isn't just about survival, it's about sending a message. On the surface, it might look like a desperate pivot in a time of crisis, but dig deeper and you'll see a bigger story playing out. One where Burkina Faso is challenging the grip of Western powers, especially its former colonizer, France. This shift isn't just strategic, it's symbolic. It's about reclaiming control and reshaping who gets to call the shots in West Africa. Let's break it down. Since Captain Ibrahim Traore took over in 2022, Burkina Faso has been rocked by turmoil, coups, assassination plots, insurgent violence. And in the eyes of many Burkinabés, one constant looms in the background: Western interference, especially from France. What was once seen as a security ally has come to be viewed as a foreign force with its own agenda. There's a growing belief that France's military presence, far from protecting the region, has only deepened instability. Operation Barkhane, the French-led counterinsurgency mission, was supposed to help, but insurgent attacks have continued, even worsened. To many, French troops haven't brought peace, they've brought resentment. That's where Russia comes in, and why it suddenly makes sense. Unlike the West, Russia isn't preaching democracy or attaching conditions to its aid. It's offering what Traore needs most: military muscle and strategic backing, without the political lectures. In a world where Western promises have fallen flat, Russia's no-strings-attached approach feels like a breath of fresh air to leaders trying to chart their own course. To Traore and others in the region, this isn't just about choosing allies, it's about choosing freedom. Freedom from foreign influence, from imposed systems, from the lingering weight of colonialism dressed up as partnership. Russia sees this too, and it's seizing the moment. With Western forces pulling back and local trust in the West at a low point, Russia is stepping in with weapons, training, and the message that it's willing to work on Africa's terms. For Burkina Faso, it's more than a shift in foreign policy. It's a stand, and possibly the start of a new chapter. But here's the big question. Is Russia really a partner, or just the next power waiting to pull the strings? Stick around as we dig into that next. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe for more insight on Black history, African politics, and the forces shaping the future of the continent. At the heart of Burkina Faso's pivot to Russia lies a simple truth. Both nations see the same adversary, the West. For decades, Western powers have claimed to champion democracy, human rights, and stability in Africa. But to many leaders on the continent, those words ring hollow. Behind the lofty promises, they see a different agenda, one built on control, resource extraction, and political meddling. And frankly, they're over it. Russia, on the other hand, is pitching itself as something different, a global counterweight to the West's dominance, where the West brings conditions, lectures, and a history of colonization. Russia offers partnership, respect, and military support with fewer strings attached. For Burkina Faso, aligning with Russia isn't just about firepower, it's about independence. By working with Moscow, Traore's government is sending a loud, clear message. We're done being told what to do by our former colonizers. This isn't just a military alliance, it's a political stance. It's a declaration that African nations are ready to make decisions based on their own interests, not Western approval. But there's more to it than politics. Burkina Faso is rich in gold and other valuable natural resources, assets that for too long have benefited outsiders more than the people who live there. Russia's growing presence in Africa includes investments in mining, energy, and infrastructure. And for a country like Burkina Faso, that could mean turning its own wealth into real national strength, not just another chapter in the story of foreign exploitation. Russia sees opportunity here too. African nations offer resources, alliances, and influence in a global system where Moscow is constantly looking to outmaneuver the West. So it's no surprise that they're stepping in with training, troops, and investments, not just to prop up a friendly government, but to plant deeper roots in Africa's future. There's also a powerful emotional current running underneath this shift, the desire to break free from colonial shadows. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union, and now Russia, often took the side of post-colonial countries. For many African leaders, Russia seems to get it in a way the West never has. But let's not forget the immediate reality on the ground. This is also about survival. Burkina Faso is in crisis. Insurgent groups are attacking villages, destabilizing regions, and threatening the central government. The West? It's backing off. Traditional allies like France have scaled down their military presence. The promises of help haven't materialized, and Traore can't afford to wait. That's where Russia steps in. No red tape, no lectures, just boots on the ground and weapons in hand. To Traore, this isn't about ideology, it's about holding the country together. And right now, Russia is the only major power offering real, tangible support without demanding political concessions. So here's the bigger question. Is this a turning point for Burkina Faso? A new path to sovereignty and strength, or just another dangerous game of foreign influence, wrapped in different packaging? Something big is happening in West Africa, and Burkina Faso is right at the center of it. As France and other Western nations pull back from the Sahel, pushed out by growing anti-colonial anger and public frustration, Russia is sliding in to take their place. And Burkina Faso, it's leading the charge in this new chapter, setting an example for other nations that are tired of being caught under the thumb of former colonial powers. This isn't just a local shift. It could spark a regional domino effect. More African countries are now eyeing closer ties with Russia and even China as they look for allies who won't lecture them or try to control their political systems. The balance of power is slowly tilting. What we're seeing could be the early signs of a new geopolitical era in Africa, one where non-Western powers take the lead. But for now, let's bring it back to the ground in Burkina Faso, where things are anything but stable. Captain Ibrahim Traore, the young and bold leader who rose to power in 2022, has already survived multiple coup attempts. With Russian commandos now backing his regime, he's managed to hold on to power, for now. But the road ahead is steep, and the pressure is mounting. His government is caught in a storm of problems. Violent insurgencies, deep political divisions, and constant international scrutiny. Even with foreign military support, Traore is in a race against time, trying to prove he can stabilize a country on the brink while showing the world that Burkina Faso won't bow to outside control. One of his biggest challenges? the relentless wave of attacks by insurgent groups across the Sahel. These aren't just isolated incidents. They're part of a widespread campaign of chaos, targeting military bases, government officials, and innocent civilians. The violence has displaced more than 1 million people, and it's threatening to tear the country apart from within. That's why Russian forces are now on the ground. This isn't just about politics, it's about survival. Russia's elite commandos weren't brought in for show. They're there to protect Traore personally, secure key institutions, and help the military push back against the insurgent threat. It's a high-stakes gamble, but in the face of growing violence and dwindling Western support, Traore sees it as the only play left. So now the real question is, can he pull it off? Can Traore turn Russian backing into lasting stability, or is he simply buying time in a fight that's far from over? Stick with us as we dive deeper into this unfolding power shift. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe for more stories that explore Black history, global politics, and the new forces shaping the future of Africa. So far, Russian boots on the ground have helped shield Captain Ibrahim Traore and his top officials from immediate threats. But let's be real, foreign commandos alone aren't going to fix Burkina Faso. What's unfolding here is way deeper than just palace security or guarding a convoy. The real battle lies in the roots of the chaos. Poverty, broken infrastructure, lack of jobs, and a government struggling to reach the people in the hardest-hit regions. Until those issues are addressed, the insurgencies won't stop, and no amount of outside firepower can change that. At the same time, Traore is fighting another war, the political one. Since taking office, his regime has faced resistance from all directions: elite political insiders, competing military factions, and civil society groups who aren't sure he's the leader they can trust. The country's economic struggles only add fuel to the fire, with prices soaring, services disrupted, and daily life growing harder for ordinary people caught in the crossfire. Yes, Traore has earned the loyalty of some, especially those tired of the West's broken promises and France's lingering influence, but gaining the trust of an entire nation, that's a whole different challenge. And don't forget the ghosts of Burkina Faso's past. This is a country where military coups aren't rare, they're practically expected. That legacy of instability still haunts Traore's government. Rivalries within the armed forces run deep, and loyalty to the president is far from guaranteed. The failed coup attempt wasn't a fluke, it was a warning sign that cracks remain in the foundation of Traore's leadership. Even with the support of elite guards and foreign advisors, keeping the military united and loyal is one of the toughest battles Traore faces. A divided army is a ticking time bomb. Then there's the economy, a slow-moving crisis with the power to unravel everything. While the country is rich in natural resources like gold, most citizens are feeling the pinch more than ever. Inflation, disrupted trade, and widespread insecurity have made life increasingly difficult. If the government can't stabilize the economy soon, public frustration could boil over, and all the foreign support in the world won't be able to stop it. So here's the big question. Can Traore do more than just survive? Can he actually lead his country through this storm? Or is he just postponing the inevitable? There's a lot more at stake than one man's presidency. What happens next could reshape the future of Burkina Faso, and possibly the entire Sahel region. Burkina Faso's economy is in a chokehold, and violence is tightening the grip. Years of unrest have derailed key industries like agriculture and mining, stalling growth and pushing everyday people further into hardship. One of the country's biggest assets, gold, could be a game changer. But right now, it's caught up in controversy. Accusations of corruption, shady deals, and mismanagement have turned what should be an economic lifeline into a political minefield. That gold isn't just valuable, it's also vulnerable, and Traore knows it. To pull the country forward, Traore's government needs to tap into those resources the right way, using them to fuel real, long-term development, instead of watching the profits disappear into the hands of foreign actors or a corrupt few. That's where Russia enters the picture. Russia's growing role in Burkina Faso could open doors, especially in mining and infrastructure. They've made it clear they're interested in African resources, and that interest could mean serious investment. But here's the catch. Traore has to walk a tightrope. How do you welcome Russian support without handing over the keys to your country's wealth? Burkina Faso has been down this road before. Foreign involvement in its natural riches has often led to exploitation rather than empowerment. Traore can't afford to let history repeat itself, not with so much on the line. And then there's the global spotlight. Traore's pivot toward Moscow might be buying him military backup and some breathing room at home, but it's also raising eyebrows abroad. Western powers, especially France, aren't exactly thrilled to see Russia expanding its footprint in the Sahel. Critics are already warning that Burkina Faso is trading one form of foreign control for another. So while Traore tries to rebuild his nation and strengthen his grip on power, he's also stepping into a much bigger geopolitical chess match, one where every move will be watched closely. So now the question is, can Traore turn Burkina Faso's gold into a path to independence and prosperity? Or is he setting the stage for a whole new kind of foreign entanglement? As Western nations start pulling back from Africa, especially with China and Russia stepping up their influence, Burkina Faso's decision to turn its back on France could come at a steep cost. The shift might win Traore some short-term leverage, but it could also leave the country more isolated on the world stage. That's a risk he can't afford to ignore. Not when Burkina Faso still needs global aid and development support just to keep its economy afloat. Now, Traore is walking a tightrope. He needs to strengthen his alliance with Russia without burning every bridge to the west. That's a delicate balancing act, especially as tensions rise and outside powers take sides. But despite the pressure building around him, this moment also brings opportunity. If Traore wants to turn things around, he'll need to dig deep and lead a serious transformation, one that speaks to the needs of everyday Burkinabés. That means investing in roads, schools, clean water, and most importantly, jobs. It also means tackling the corruption and human rights issues that have held the country back for years. To truly secure Burkina Faso's independence, not just from France, but from any foreign control, Traore must show he's serious about reform. That's the only way to build a future where the country can stand on its own while still working with global partners. But here's the big question. Can Traore actually pull it off? Will his bold moves save Burkina Faso, or put a target on his back? Is this the beginning of a new chapter, or just another turn in a long, chaotic story? We want to hear what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Is Traore making the right black culture?
On May 17, 2025, the air in Ouagadougou crackled with historical resonance as Burkina Faso unveiled a monument to a man whose legacy transcends time, Captain Thomas Sankara. Dubbed Africa's Che Guevara, Sankara was a revolutionary leader whose bold vision for a sovereign, anti-imperialist, and egalitarian Burkina Faso cost him his life in a 1987 coup. Nearly 4 decades later, his spirit loomed large over the nation as President Ibrahim Traore's government inaugurated a towering mausoleum honoring Sankara and his 12 slain companions. The ceremony, steeped in symbolism, was more than a tribute. It was a reclamation of history. Dignitaries, activists, and citizens gathered at the site where Sankara was assassinated, now transformed into the Thomas Sankara Memorial. Speakers echoed his famous words, "The dead are not dead." For Burkina Faso, this moment marked a defiant step toward healing the wounds of erasure, finally granting Sankara the dignified resting place he was denied for decades.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just heard the 21 cannon shots, which followed the official inaugural address of His Excellency, the President of Faso, Head of State, delivered by His Excellency, the Prime Minister, Chief of Government. He declared that the enemies are crawling definitely to defeat, and he asked to all the audience to give a standing ovation to the National Forces of Defense. He stated on behalf of His Excellency, the President of Faso, Head of State, that this day of May the 17th, 2025, history reminds us all that 42 years ago, the same day, in 1983, imperialist and neocolonialist forces orchestrated the arrest of Comrade Captain Thomas Sankara, then Prime Minister. In these days that followed, young anti-imperialist fighters mobilized to say no to this criminal act. The seeds of the People's Democratic Revolution had thus been sown. 2 weeks later, Captain Thomas Sankara was released under popular pressure, and 3 months later, from this fertile soil nourished by the people's profound aspiration for freedom, the revolution germinated. This May the 17th, 2025 is therefore a symbol for the refusal of imperialist domination, neocolonialism, and their avatars, war and terrorism. It is also a symbol of our people's determination to face up to their destiny and build a free and sovereign nation. This ideal was carried forward by our predecessors under the PDR, the People's Democratic Revolution, led by the Comrade Captain Thomas Sankara. And today we carry this torch of anti-imperialism struggle with the Progressive People's Revolution. This May the 17th, we honor our duty to remember by inaugurating the mausoleum dedicated to the President, Noel Isidore Thomas Sankara, and his comrades in struggle who fell for the beloved homeland under the murderous bullets of imperialism, local henchmen, and arch-chair Negroes, who fell for the ideals of dignity, freedom, integrity, and sovereignty, fallen but forever alive in our hearts and minds. The choice of this date is no accident and recalls the commitment of peace fighters in Burkina Faso and around the world. It is not then a reunion of sad memorial, but it is to celebrate the heroism of those who fought for the integrity of the nation. This mausoleum marks the start of the major Thomas Sankara Memorial Project, which will be built over an area of around 14 hectares, along with many other infrastructures. The Thomas Sankara Memorial is conceived not only as a place of remembrance, but also as a space for reflection, education, inspiration, and action. Its vocation is to keep the flame of the revolution burning and to remind the world of Captain Thomas Sankara's struggle to break the chains of slavery and imperialist domination and to emerge from oppression. This project is intended to be Pan-African and popular because Thomas Sankara himself was a global icon. It therefore invites everyone to make their contribution to the memorial. It decided on this special occasion to name streets after the 12 companions of President Thomas Sankara. He congratulated the committee, the international committee, and despite the difficulties inherent in revolutionary commitment, they have remained worthy and active in perpetuating the ideals of the father of the August Revolution. He saluted the determination of former companions who have remained faithful to the cause, of civil society organizations, and of all patriotic Pan-Africanist activists here and abroad. It did not pass over in silence the tireless and immeasurable efforts of comrades in different countries around the world who have contributed to the success of this international committee. given to the Thomas Sankara Memorial. He saluted all the coordination of the Noel Isidore Thomas Sankara Memorial Infrastructure Construction Project, the architects, the engineers, workers, artists, volunteers, and builders of the collective memory who have contributed to making this mausoleum a place of recollection and inspiration for future generations. He thanked all the distinguished guests from all over Africa and the rest of the world. He mentioned that their presence is an act of solidarity and shared pride because Thomas Sankara belongs not only to Burkina Faso, but to the whole of Africa and to fighting for humanity.
Starting a YouTube channel can be very challenging, especially if you don't want to show your face, don't know what.
As their heirs of this struggle, he said that we are all aware of the responsibility we bear in these times of crisis. He finished his speech by wishing a long life to a free and sovereign Burkina Faso, a long life to the People's Progressive Revolution. I thank you all once more for your kind attention.
To understand Traore's fixation on Sankara, one must confront Burkina Faso's fractured identity. Since Sankara's 1987 assassination, the nation has oscillated between coups, insurgencies, and Compaore's corrupt reign. Traore, a career soldier, recognized early that Sankara's ghost held unparalleled power to mobilize the masses. By exhuming Sankara's legacy, literally and figuratively, he tapped into a visceral yearning for national pride. Traore's efforts went beyond bricks and mortar. He spearheaded the renaming of 12 streets in Ouagadougou to honor Sankara's slain comrades, a gesture that rewrote the city's colonial-era cartography. These men were not footnotes. They were the revolution's heartbeat, Traore asserted during the unveiling. The move was strategic. By elevating Sankara's collaborators, Traore positioned himself as a steward of collective struggle, not a lone strongman. Traore's Sankara revival also serves as a geopolitical shield. Expelling French troops in 2023 and pivoting toward Russia alienated Western allies, but invoking Sankara's anti-imperialist rhetoric lent Traore ideological cover. At the memorial's inauguration, delegations from Senegal, Mali, and Chad, nations similarly distancing from Western influence, stood in solidarity. Sankara's fight is Africa's fight, declared Senegal's Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko, underscoring Traore's success in regional alliance building. Even the mausoleum's design reflects Traore's defiance. Francis Carré's use of locally sourced laterite stone and solar-responsive architecture mirrors Sankara's ethos of sustainability and self-sufficiency. This building is a manifesto, Carré noted, crediting Traore's government for greenlighting his radical vision. Traore's detractors argue that glorifying Sankara distracts from his own democratic deficits. Yet his administration has quietly adopted Sankara-esque policies, slashing presidential salaries, launching youth vocational programs, and prioritizing public health in conflict zones. Traore is no Sankara, but he's the first leader in decades who dares to try, admitted activist Aïcha Diallo, a former Sankara aide. Ibrahim Traore's greatest achievement may be this. He has forced Burkina Faso and the world to reckon with Sankara anew. The mausoleum is more than a tomb. It is a classroom, a protest site, and a mirror reflecting the nation's unmet promises. Yet Traore knows stones alone cannot quell jihadist violence or poverty. His true test lies in channeling Sankara's spirit into systemic change. Land reform, anti-corruption crackdowns, and equitable resource distribution. For now, the memorial stands as a testament to Traore's political acumen. A leader who understands that in a fractured nation, the past is the most potent weapon to shape the future. As the sun set on the memorial's inauguration, Traore lingered at Sankara's grave, a solitary figure in the shadow of history. The message was unmistakable. This is not the end of Sankara's revolution, but its rekindling. Vive Traore's resolve. Vive Sankara's undying flame.
We can tell them they can no longer go to Burkina, they can no longer go to Côte d'Ivoire, they can no longer go to Ghana. It becomes a bit more complicated for those who do their business there.
I want you all to type in the comment section, congratulations, Wadamaya, for becoming an AES citizen.
This organization, which was supposed to create mutual aid and solidarity, we have never received any help from this organization. No soldiers, no logistics, no compassion.
You might want to leave. And people are saying, isn't this a reaction to the fact that they don't accept that you allowed coup d'etat, that you are leaving and saying to yourself, well, since they don't accept it, we're leaving.
Coup d'etat are not done because we want them. It's this way of seeing things that needs to change. You agree with me that having these states in crisis to carry out a coup d'etat and take responsibility is very burdensome. But if we do it, it's because we have a desire to lead our people towards a certain sovereignty, because we know the origin of this crisis. And I think we should be supported.
This man!
Yoruba TV 247 ẹ bá wa dá sí. Ìpolówó ọjà tó kájí wọlé ẹ bá wa dá sí. Ọ̀rọ̀ lórí orílẹ̀-èdè Yorùbá gbogbogbò ẹ bá wa dá sí. Ẹ̀yin ará mi ẹ súnmọ́ bí ẹ jẹ́ ká jọ pín ẹ bá wa dá sí. Yoruba TV 247 ẹ bá wa pín.